Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning for those of you on the West Coast. I'm very happy that you were able to join us today for Yes, Students Can Conquer Medical Coding. We're going to split this session into two pieces, basically. I'm going to talk about the textbook and workbook and the instructional assets that go along with it. And my colleague, Molly Ray, who is also on the line, will talk about Medical Coding Lab, our online educational experience. So I think through both of us, we'll give you a real clear idea of what this product offers and the benefits to you and to your students. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to first take you through the textbook and show you some aspects of the textbook that I think are particularly important. This happens to be Chapter 6, which is nervous system, eye and ear, circulatory system, and respiratory system, those chapters within the ICD-10 manual. One of the benefits of this book is that not only are the chapters organized exactly as the coding books are, the code manuals, in this instance the ICD-10 manual, but within the chapter, the content is organized that way as well. It doesn't skip around, which is a really nice feature to have, I think, and certainly the authors think, to show the students and take them through step-by-step the different pieces of the code books. The ICD-10 chapters look just like the CPT chapters, and the features are the same. So this happens to be a ICD-10 chapter, and it shows you here the organization within the chapter following exactly the ICD-10 book. I can make this a little bit bigger too. I don't know how big it is from your screen. That thought process of making it as easy as possible for the student to work their way through the book is something that the authors really kept in mind throughout development. The book number one was built with ICD-10 in mind because it's a very different code set than ICD-9, obviously. And let me also say at the outset that the book covers ICD-10-CM. It does not do much of anything other than mention it with the ICD-10-PCS, that the authors consider PCS a more advanced code set and not pertinent to this book. So this focuses on CM, the outpatient, primarily outpatient code sets. We have a little feature here. I'm going to talk about the features first. It's a stoplight feature that provides little tips and alerts and things in the margin. And the stoplight, the red, yellow, and green icons help the student put those tips into some kind of context. You see a case scenario here as well. There are cases throughout the book. Every single chapter has a lot of them. The activities in the end of the chapter, there are a number of cases there. The workbook, which I'll show you in a bit, has even more cases. It's really quite a case-heavy textbook and workbook, and we think you can't get enough practice, and you know that. For your coding students, they can't get enough of the thought process and making those coding decisions that they need to make. And we think this book really takes them through. Here's another one. All these green boxes are coding boxes. There are a number of, wrong one. I do that all the time. A number of these sidebar boxes. There are three main ones: pharmacology connection, anatomy, a pathophysiology refresher, and then reimbursement review. And they are consistently named throughout the chapters, wherever pertinent, obviously. Pharmacology covering drugs, reimbursement covering billing procedures and information that the coder needs to know, and pathophysiology refresher, really just giving an update on pathophysiology for the students who might not have had that for a few weeks or a few months, depending on when they start the coding course. Now, this is a hallmark feature, and I wanted to show you a fairly involved one. We call these checkpoints, pinpoint the codes. And the pinpoint the code feature are flowcharts. They're decision tables that not only explain what the code is, but when different aspects of the coding decision-making process should be attempted. This one's fairly complicated, so it's diastolic, and they're saying, okay, step one, figure out how acute it is, and is it acute or chronic? And it works its way down through all of these decisions to arrive at a code, and even an additional code if, in this case, renal disease is documented. So this is a congestive heart failure code. These decision-making trees, first of all, reviewed during the manuscript process and the proposal process, the highest I think I've ever seen. And once you start working with them, I think you'll agree they are enormously helpful for the how, the when, the why these coding decisions are made. And they are throughout the book, in all ICD and CPT chapters and the HCPCS chapter. You'll find multiple of these. Mostly for the most common diagnoses, we don't do flowcharts, the pinpoint to codes for the less common diagnoses, but heart failure here is clearly one, and there are several within this chapter. Getting towards the end of the chapter, exercises, let me get down there. Oh, first the chapter summary, one of my favorite pieces. And I didn't realize it until I really started to review the manuscript. These chapter summaries are the best I've ever seen for any book. They are detailed, studyable, that's a word, and comprehensive. And I would suggest that you might even want the students to read this first. They could read the chapter summary, go back to the beginning of the chapter, and then read it, and sort of see where that summary comes from, and they'll know where they're going. They'll see some points that they read in the summary that they'll find back in the book. They're really marvelous chapter summaries, and I didn't have anything to do with them other than the authors. It impresses me, these summaries. Review questions, we have matching, multiple choice. Of course, there are some true false, and there are some sort of minor cases, mini cases, and a section on internet research. These are throughout all of the chapters again, so that they really give the student a breadth of knowledge that it's not available in a lot of other coding books. If I can, let me go to a sample of the instructor's guide, which is not online yet, but it will be within, I hope, the next week or so. It's a fairly typical instructor's guide. There are 3 suggested syllabi. Let me make this bigger as well. There's a 10-week syllabus, a 24-week, and a 32-week, where the authors have gone through and tried to identify what they would suggest faculty do for whatever the period of time is, the duration of the course. And that can be helpful. And obviously, you can modify those any way you choose. The chapters themselves have learning outcomes, an overview, classroom discussion and review questions, resources for further study, suggested activities, including homework, and some additional instructor resources to the text. Pretty straightforward. The answer key is also here. The answers for the in-text, some of the in-text activities will be in a separate document, but most of them will be in the instructor's guide. This is what I'm really excited about, though. We call it a LessonPro. It's an enhanced instructor's guide that really is a curriculum in a box. So for this chapter, again, it's the learning outcomes, lesson materials, and then a timed lesson outline, giving a new instructor or even an experienced instructor that hasn't taught a particular type of content before, an idea about how much time these pieces of content take within a class. He also has all the activities and the assets available for the instructor's guide, for the instructor. What's available for the student. I'm looking in the blue box on the right. And the instructor's account for Davis Plus, and it will link to the Davis Plus account for instructors. Within all of these lesson pros are notes on the right-hand margin that are designed to help a new faculty or even, as I say, even an experienced faculty who hasn't taught this content, tips on what to do, what to cover, what to say. Make sure you remember this. Remind students, as the bottom one says, remind students that following the instructional notes under the different COPD subcategories and codes is imperative when coding for COPD and asthma encounters. So it can be really, really helpful for a new faculty coming in. You literally could hand them the instructor's guide and other assets and the LessonPro, and they can go to town. Very, very helpful. Then there's a lecture review and homework assignment, activities, and what's coming next. A look ahead. And that's, again, consistent with all these LessonPros, of which there are 51, I think 51. There is at least one for every chapter. Many chapters have 2, some chapters have 3, depending on the amount of content and the amount of time involved in detailing that particular chapter in class. Let me go to a PowerPoint. I'm going to take questions at the end. And if you have questions now, write them down. Molly is monitoring those questions, and I'll cover those before I hand it off to Molly for the medical coding lab. So I want to go to the PowerPoint now. This is a PDF of the PowerPoint, but you'll get the picture. It's a pretty straightforward PowerPoint with lecture notes, images where pertinent, but there are a couple things I wanted to really call your attention to, and this is one of them. Within all pertinent slides, not that, that's just objectives, are embedded in the notes section, notes for the faculty. So just like in the LessonPro, providing notes in that right-hand margin that a new faculty could use to teach the content, that chapter, we put a fair amount of information, quite comprehensive, in the PowerPoint notes sections, so that an instructor could print off the notes sections from PowerPoint and have a ready information as they're teaching. In the this is going to be a table. I actually haven't picked up. The PowerPoints are done. They're finished, and they're available to adopters. This is an older one, and I'm glad we did this today. It reminds me I have to replace this with the correct chapter. Some information, this is one of my favorite ones to show. This is injuries of the eyes, diseases and injuries of the eyes. These are notes for it. Continued. So in-depth notes for all of the bullet points on that slide. There is a note about those diseases or injuries. Very detailed. We also put in what I call clicker slides, and these occur every so often within the presentation, every chapter, that test knowledge of the student. So a faculty, an instructor could use these slides periodically as they come up to test knowledge. Right now you see a green box over B, which is a correct answer. When you're actually doing the presentation, that box doesn't show up until you click it. So you can ask a student, okay, how many think it's A, how many think it's B, and so forth. And then once you've gauged the class where their thinking is, either using eye clickers or other technology, a smart clicker, or hands in the air, or any of a number of texting applications, then you can click and show them the correct answers, of which there may be one or more. This one happens to be 1. And there's another one that's just a true-false. So a variety of assessment types in these clicker slides as well. There is one other document, and I'm going to show just the ABHES version of it. Trying to get this a little bit bigger. These are competency checkpoints, basically. We've listed for ABHES, for CAHEP, and for HEMA, all of the competencies required for coding, and then explained in the right-hand margin under textbook coverage where we cover those particular competencies. And again, there's one for ABHES, one for CAHEP, one for HEMA. So this, again, is something that's like a curriculum in a box. When the site visitors come, this can be handed to them. And for all pertinent competencies, not all of them, obviously, but all pertinent ones, it shows what the textbook and workbook cover. So we think that could be very valuable as well, an asset to anyone who uses the book. Oh, I got to go back here. Now, what questions do you have? Did you put them in the box, which I'm going to unshare so I can see what you're saying?
Yes. Well, I can read the questions, Andy. So,
okay.
We did have one question just now about the competencies that asked if the HEMA competencies are the 2012 or 2014 competencies that were used.
All of the ones for KHEP, HEMA, and AVHES are the latest ones out. And so, one of them, I think, 2014, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted, since we only got the one question, I just wanted to remind everyone that they can type their questions directly into the Q&A box. And before we flip over, actually, Andy, I'm sorry, I was going to make you share one more thing.
Oh, go ahead. I will share again.
So the LessonPro, just one more time, if we could show the LessonPro.
Sure.
And the reason I want to do that is because I want to point out something before I go on to the medical coding lab.
That is LessonPro. Right here. You want
so
first
Andy
page?
Was showing you, yes, on the first page. So Andy was showing you that it has all the lesson materials. So I just wanted to really point out that part of those lesson materials and what it's showing that you can use is the medical coding lab for each of these lessons. So it's we have provided resources for you to make it also easier to incorporate the medical coding lab, which I'm about to show you, but they really, the LessonPro helps you do that, and the medical coding lab, you'll see it goes very nicely. It matches off of the text very nicely. But, okay, with that, we could go ahead and move the,
right.
If you are done showing what you're going to show, you can hand me the presenter ball. All right. Looks like we can see there. So right now I am in the medical coding lab. I will say that this online learning program, it is actually something that when students purchase a new text, they will get an access code on the inside front cover of the text. So that's a really nice feature. It's not a separate sale item when they're buying the text. They're able to get it along with the text. So I'm just logging in really quickly. You saw that. Wanted to show you that that's the screen. If you went to Medical Coding Lab, that first screen is where you'd land. So now I'm logging in. Just give us a second to get in here. And when you log in, it's going to take you to your dashboard. And there we go. So this is the dashboard. It says my dashboard. This looks like an instructor dashboard, what yours would look like, because I have the access as an instructor. And students also get a very similar looking dashboard when they log in. One of the first things I just wanted to, before we get into the types of activities, I would love to show you just how easy it is for you to get started when you are going to create a class. You see this Create a Class button here. I can click that. All I have to do is enter a class title. The description is optional. I have my start date and my end date. And then there's some other options here. When you adopt, we do have a Getting Started course that's going to make all of this even easier. But like I said, I wanted to show you how easy it is for you to get started. And once I enter that information, I just hit Save and Continue. And there's a lot of customization that you can do to make this fit your course so that you can select, if we were to do customized settings, you can select which activities you want to use, if there's certain lessons that you don't want to include or you do want to include. But if you were to just want to create a class, it's that simple. That would include all the content from all the lessons, and it's very easy. And you can always go back in and use this link here that says Edit Class Details. So you can always go back in and make these kind of changes I was talking about. It's very easy across the top to get you to, The lesson reorder lets you put the lessons in the order that you want or delete lessons altogether, which I can show you. That screen is pretty easy. And then the lesson settings are where you're actually able to go in, and I can select chapters or select lessons, and I can make very specific customization for each lesson as much as I want or as little as I want, to be able to even do things like set different due dates for different exercises within here. But like I said, we are not going to get into the nitty-gritty of that too much today. It's just really, I would like to show you that it's easy for you to get started, and we also provide support with our Getting Started webinars. We have instructor guides for this, as well as student guides for how to use it. So with the idea in mind that it really is easy for you to be able to integrate it into your course. As I was having Andy show you that the LessonPro calls out the medical coding lab as well. We really are thinking about how you can incorporate this. So now I actually am going to go into preview what the student side looks like, because I think what's really important to show today is really what's gone into the content of Medical Coding Lab. This is taking us into what a student view looks like. As I mentioned, they have their own dashboard. So this is what a student dashboard would look like, something that's very nice for your students. They have their own gradebook view. So you have a gradebook view that will show you everybody in the course, but students also are able to they'll always know how they're doing because they have their own gradebook view. We have a discussion forum in here, so if you want to spend some time there, you are doing more online work, you do have a discussion forum within Medical Coding Lab where you can communicate with your students that way. This instructor feedback, there are some generation activities that are what we're calling short answer activities, but this lets students know if you had provided any additional feedback beyond just kind of what automatically reports to the grade book. We have the ebook and the glossary. The ebook has not, what I'm showing today is actually Medical Coding Lab is still in a test phase. So we haven't quite gotten the ebook loaded in there, but what it is it's just that students will, and as you will as well, you have access to an ebook version of Conquer Medical Coding within the Medical Coding Lab. And one of the nice things, I'm going to go into one of the lessons here, one of the ICD-10 lessons. When you look at how the lessons are structured, each lesson is structured very similarly. When they have the ebook option here, they will actually have just the portion of the ebook that applies to this lesson. So lessons 6 through 10, G00 through J99, that's the content that they're going to get with their ebook. So it's an even more useful ebook than just giving them the large have to search because it's embedded within their lessons and makes being able to refer back to that content very easy. The other thing, just if you look at the order of these lessons and you were looking at Conquer Medical Coding, each one of these lesson titles, this is what corresponds with the chapters in the text. So it just follows the text right along the same chapters. You can see here we have sample or practice activities. We have flashcards that they can get into. Don't tip the scale, which is like the hangman activities. The short answer I was talking about, but what I really would like to show you an example of is for ICD-10, what we're calling Build Medical Code. Get into this. So I'm going to show you an example of a CPT chapter after this, but for the ICD-10 chapters, we very specifically have these Build Medical Code activities, and it gives you this small case scenario of what needs to happen, code the diagnosis for this patient. They're able to continue to the questions and be able to, after they have read the last part, they can then do a drag and drop into here to be able to answer that this is, what is the diagnosis code, and they have a number of questions than that they're just answering. Of course, I'm just flying through here, so we know I'm not even really paying attention, but I wanted to show then you have some couple options. When you set it up as an instructor, you can have it set to automatically submit for a grade right away, but in this case, I get a screen like this. If you have the grading set up so that students can practice and then decide to have it graded, then they'll get a screen like this where they'll decide if they want to review it or if they want to submit what they did for a grade. So, of course, I got them all wrong because I flew through them, but you can see students are then given what the correct answer is for that build medical codes. So we can head back to the student dashboard. And as I said, I wanted to just then go into one of the CPT chapters to be able to show you the activity that's unique to the CPT, and it's called Analyze the Codes, because these are not all the same. We're not trying to fit activities into the different types of coding. So an Analyze a Code is a little bit different, designed for the CPT, learning the CPT coding. And so in this case, then, you have these types of questions, and a select all that applies so that, it's not just a single type of multiple choice. They really have to look at what the code is, understand, and be able to select all the options. Again, this is that grade or review. And in the same way, it gives the correct answer or answers and tells the student when they did it, what they did incorrectly. Andy was showing some of the case scenarios within the text. Talked about we have lots and lots of cases in the workbook.
And actually, I didn't show the workbook either, and I apologize. Right. So we'll go back to the workbook after this, but go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. So, and what you were saying, Andy, about how important it is and that everyone is well aware that these kind of case scenarios really is reflecting what they will encounter in professional practice is really important. So we really tried to fit that in everywhere and be able to say that this curriculum solution is providing more case-based practice than you can get otherwise, just because it's throughout the text. It's all the workbook. There's a ton, so Andy should definitely show that. And then right through here in Medical Coding Lab. If I go back to that CPT chapter that we were in, you can see there's case studies. And as I said, each one of these lessons has the same structure. So there are case studies for each lesson. And these particular case studies are going to apply to CPT anesthesia codes. So it's very specific that I would go in here and it would be what I learned in the anesthesia code CPT chapter. It's not going to try to get me to think about, anything else I've learned, but just what's in this CPT anesthesia codes chapter. So you've got your little scenario and then the questions that they then have to answer based on that little scenario they were given, the case. So, and then once again, as you can see, it tells me where I got right or wrong. This is what happens when you fly through. You never get them right.
I wouldn't get them right either.
Yeah, if I paid even closer attention, I still wouldn't get them right. This is not an easy thing. So I'm not a very good medical coding student at this point. But as I said, so we have those kind of case studies for every single one of these lessons. But if you scroll all the way to the bottom of the screen, what we have here at the end, our last lesson is HCPCS, and that's the last chapter in the book. But what we have here at the very bottom are what we are calling capstone cases. These cases, we have, how many do we end up having? 15 of these cases that are bringing their entire knowledge base together and really being reflective of what students have learned, so that really in the same way of they're in the medical office and they're going to be presented with cases that, they're not neat and tidy. It's not just one thing like it would be in the individual lessons. They really need to be able to bring all their their coding knowledge together to be able to do these more complex cases. So you get, if I go into here, you get a much more complex case. It's a lot longer. You know, it's talking about surgery day 2. You know, they really need to be able to take a closer look at this and apply. It's not really giving them, other than the topic, which was, I think, a musculoskeletal topic, it doesn't really tell them, you know, what to expect as far as what they have to get into. So then we continue to the questions, and they'll have to answer questions here. But if you look at these, you know, these are more, it's not just as straightforward. There's a variety of questions they have to answer that are more, basically because they're dealing with a more complex case, they have more of a variety of questions they have to answer than with those more the simpler case studies that we already saw. And in this case, the other nice thing that happens that we get because they're so much more complex, we have these rationales that are provided as well. I did get the EDEM service code one correct.
Excellent.
But yes. So that really shows you very briefly what the medical coding lab would look like for students. What I was going to jump to for us, just to give you an idea, I was going to jump to the medical language lab gradebook just so that you could have an idea of what the gradebook view looks like for you. This is another one of our products. Because the medical coding lab is not out as completely as a product that's just in the testing, we don't have a test class to be able to show you the gradebook. So instead, I just am able to show you the gradebook using a demo class on our medical language lab because the gradebook looks very similar. It just ends up being different content. So this is the gradebook view that you would have. There are some nice, there's a export gradebook. So when you are dealing with the different learning management systems, you're able to take the gradebook from Medical Coding Lab and export it to your learning management system. There are a number of different learning management systems that are supported, including we have these a new option on here that you'll get with Med Coding Lab, which allows you to download these individual assignment scores and more easily than if you want to have those and be able to upload them. It's a little more complicated than the upload that happens where the ones that are specific to your learning management system, but it was to allow more flexibility. So if you don't have one of these learning management systems, and also it presents the scores in a little bit different viewpoint for you as well. But down here, you would, of course, have real student names, but you can see things like here's your overall grade. One of the really nice features of our gradebook is time spent, and as students look at their own gradebook, they see that column too. So it's very obvious how much time a student has spent in the medical coding lab and on the assignments. And if I drill down into one down here, now I can see the specific grades that a student gets for each lesson, and I can see the time spent on each individual lesson, and I can continue to drill down so that I get grades for each individual activity within a lesson. And you also, this is where you have the ability to override scores for any reason if you need to do so. Again, you get to see the time spent on each individual activity. So you can really get as much detail as you'd like about down to the activities. There is this compare with class button that allows me to see how the student activity by activity for this particular lesson compares to the rest of the class. And this is, if I go back up to like class level details in the grade book, give it some time, I can do the comparison. I can still do this compare against class. Now it's comparing against the class for each lesson. So these are some nice features just to give you a quick way of looking at how students are doing in a class, but wanted to be able to show you so you have an idea of what to expect with the gradebook functionality that you are going to have. So that was everything that I, in our very quick demo today, was going to show with Medical Coding Lab. Andy, did we have any specific questions for Medical Coding Lab?
Yeah, there were. One of them, I think that's probably the main one on people's mind is from Linda Donahue. Are the cases in Medical Coding Lab different than the cases in the textbook and workbook? And the answer is yes. All of the cases are unique to that product. So there's no case in the text that's repeated in a workbook, nor is that case repeated on Medical Coding Lab. So when we say we have hundreds and hundreds of cases, that's what we mean. They are individual, unique cases. There were a couple of other questions about the textbook and ancillaries that I've been answering on chat.
Okay, great.
And let me just take them quickly. About one asked if there are AAPC competencies, the American Academy of Professional Coders, and the answer to that is no, there aren't, because they don't accredit programs. Those competencies in the document that I showed you are for the accrediting agencies. But if you have an accrediting agency different than or different from KHAP, AHIMA, or ABHAS, please let me know. There are others out there. Let me know, and we'll take care of that. I can get those things taken care of. There was a question about the test bank with Blackboard, but I think compatibility with Blackboard, but I think you answered that, Molly, a little bit ago. One individual loves the dashboard, so that was a nice compliment. People have asked if I have any plans for a PCS book or an ICD book, an ICD PCS book, and I'd love to do one. So I'd be very happy with that. And then, hang on, I think that was that's pretty much it. So,
okay.
If you want, let's go back to. Let me just show the workbook. What? Go ahead.
Yes, that was exactly what I was going to say, is that I was going to stop sharing and I'm going to pass you the presenter ball so that you can show the workbook.
Great. Where is it? And I don't think you're seeing my screen yet, right? I have to share it first.
No, not yet.
No, not yet. Okay. Ready now? Yeah, I think okay.
Okay, now we can see it.
Thank you. All right, so thanks, Molly. I apologize for not showing this before, but this is a sample chapter, again, Chapter 6 of the workbook. There are, we call them coded exercises. It's really the diagnosis, and you apply the code or write what the code is. There are a lot of multiple choice activities, short answer activities as well. Again, case studies with wherever pertinent, there are medical notes or operative notes or whatever is needed for a particular case. And then there's another one there. And then a little reminder to go to Medical Coding Lab for additional activities. So they're fairly robust cases, fairly robust chapters, in the workbook that go along with the text. All right, were there other questions? I'm going to stop sharing again.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
And actually, I'm not sure. So if, as you are considering adopting Conquer Medical Coding and everything that we've shared with you today, we really did do this pretty quickly. Wanted to give you an idea of what to expect. If you have more interest and are ready to adopt or need more information, there's a few things next steps that you can do. We have a survey when you leave the webinar today that it will be very helpful to understand what next steps you would like to take if you take some time to answer that survey as you're leaving, as you exit out today. we can do a more in-depth demo, and I put the demo email that we have there on the screen. It's demo, D-E-M-O, at fadavis.com, and it would be if you're interested in having the ability to dig in even more. As I had mentioned, when you do adopt, we also do webinars to get you trained in medical coding lab, get you feel comfortable getting your class created, being able to do all those customization settings, and be able to really use it to its fullest extent, so that it will be an option as well that would come down the road after adoption. You can go to Medical Coding Lab, to the website that I was at, and be able to explore it on your own. I added the website there. It's just as simple as www.medicalcodinglab.com. If you have received a complimentary review copy of Conquer Medical Coding, you will also be able to log into Medical Coding Lab and explore it, even though, as I said, we are in a test phase. It is being made available to instructors who are interested in the same way that you would be able to log into our Davis Plus and take a closer look at the instructor resources that Andy was showing, the PowerPoint, the LessonPro. The same login that would get you into Davis Plus will get you into Medical Coding Lab and allow you to do some exploration there. And so, of course, at any time, if you need any assistance, you can contact your educational consultant. If you're not sure who that is, you can easily figure that out on fadavis.com. We have an educational consultant locator. Or you can simply contact our customer service. I did provide the email address there, which is just very simple, CF for customer service at fadavis.com. But again, also, if you go to fadavis.com, you can also get the toll-free number. And as I said, you can figure out who your educational consultant is if you're not aware. But yes, so if we have
Molly, hang on just a second.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, sorry. Before we leave the screen, just a couple things. I suspect that some of you are wondering, well, if the Med Coding Lab is in test, when will it come out of test? And right now we're looking at the middle of March. Mm-hmm. So very soon, within the next few weeks. And not all of the instructional assets are on Davis Plus yet, but most of them are. What's lagging right now, but should be complete within the next week to 2 weeks, is the instructor's guide and the test bank. But everything should be in place by the middle of March. So there you go. All right, Molly, back to you.
Yes, and if you had any desire to see some sample content of that before it goes live on our Davis Plus, that's another thing you can contact us about, and we have samples for you to look at of that content as well, including actually on Davis Plus. There is, under the instructor resources, a sample of the test bank, which is nice because it does include the Bloom's taxonomy and rationales within that test bank. And with that, I think, Andy, you have taken care of a number of questions today, and which is great, and we've answered a number of questions today. We welcome you to continue the conversation with us. When you close out today, like I said, a survey will pop up, so please answer that survey, and we look forward to continuing to work with you and helping your students conquer medical coding.
Thank you all very, very much. We appreciate it.